Hello and welcome to what I'm hoping to be a new on YouTube series. I'm going to title "How Would I Write It?" It's basically just going to be me ranting or theory crafting or basically just talking about elements, narratives, or concepts that have been introduced to, and just things I don't agree with that I feel I want to share, like my opinions, how I would have changed it. It's a series I've been wanting to do for a bit of a while now, but I've wanted to do this series for a while now, but I've always found some excuse not to. So I think today, for this particular topic, I wanted to just get down and do it. And this particular topic is going to be it's going to be a finicky one. I don't even know if I'm actually going to release this video because I want to talk about Madam Web. Here's the problem. I haven't actually watched Madam Web. It was one of those movies that told myself on the word go, I'm not going to watch this movie. I don't want to support this movie. I don't want this to. It's one of those movies I just look at and go, why does this thing need to exist? It doesn't. The answer is it doesn't. Anyway, everything I'm about to talk about today, this is going to be my interpretation of how I felt the Madam Web movie should go, but only drawing from information I gathered from third party, from an extent like the Wikipedia, most commonly from a podcast I listened to by Comics Spirit, absolutely Marvel and DC. If you've ever heard of them, if you haven't heard of them, go check them out. They are brilliant when it comes to comic book material. Their podcast is great. Sal from Comic Book, Benny from Comic Story, and Hassan from TikTok, I guess. Go check them out. Highly recommend you go check that. But basically, everything I'm going to discuss is drawn from information that I've heard from them when they were discussing how awful the plot is, frankly. And if I'm taking from them, it doesn't sound great. But again, this is all based on information I got secondhand, and using that, I formulated okay, well, this would have been how I would have written it based on that information. So just take this as you will. This is literally going to be me shitting on a movie I haven't watched, and I'm usually the first to put my hand up and say that's something that you should never do. You should always judge something for yourself. Don't listen to other people. Go watch the movie yourself. Go play that game. Go read that book. Go watch that TV show. Go check it out for yourself and make your own opinions. That's my disclaimer for the video. Okay. That being said, how would I have written Madam Web?
What do you want from me? Why do you care for me? Why do you know?
So, start the movie. Okay, movie starts off in. From what I heard, the movie basically starts with a flashback, like, we'll say, 30 years, with the flashes back to Cassandra's birth, as it were. She, more specifically, cuts to when her mother and her bodyguard, apparently, Ezekiel Sims, when they are trekking through the rainforest looking for all the spiders and all of that stuff and shit. I would take that scene and remove it. Not get rid of it, just remove it from that section of the game. Just sort of pull it out. I would actually start, if I was writing this movie, if I was making this movie, I would start it, just cut straight to the title sequence. But yeah, think the beginning of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies. Literally, there's no prologue, there's no preamble. It just cuts straight to from the credits to the title sequence to that bawling music track. I mean, if you've heard it, Jesus Christ, that thing slaps. One of the best Spider-Man themes of all time, hands down. Yeah, I'd cut straight to that. You'd have the title sequence, you'd have the names. May even, I don't know what you'd do for the visuals. Visuals might be fun. Visuals would be fun. They'd actually lend themselves rather well to Madam Web, I reckon. But yeah, and then the credits titles going, and you'll pan similar to how Spider-Man 1 did it, and most of the others actually come to think of it. You'll pan focusing on a spider web, and it will zoom, and it will basically crossfade into our first scene where there's a spider web in Cassandra's apartment. And that's where you are introduced to Cassandra. She's just living her life in her apartment. Yeah, that's where you start the movie. It's like you could even have her narrating, sort of thing she would Adam Webb would do at the beginning, by the end of the movie, but it's just like just at the beginning bit, similar to how Sam Raimi's Spider-Man did. So, and thinking about it, I like this opening sequence of serious things. Number one, it would actually establish itself in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man verse. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing, I'll leave that up to interpretation. I reckon it can only work in its favor. And also, the Spider-Web. I realized this sort of after I'd come up with the idea. Thematically appropriate. I'll come back to that. Anyway, so yeah, she's in her apartment. We just see her don't go about her daily life. She's has the whole thing. She goes to work. She's an EMT. We see her just doing ordinary stuff, as it were. We're at the sequence to introduce to Ben Parker, her partner, who we know as, Uncle Ben. In this sequence, when they're at work, I heard somewhere she ends up at a baby shower, just randomly, I suppose. I wouldn't make it random. I would make that as a central thing at the beginning. I'll explain how this will be important, but in the sequence, you'll have Ben inviting her to a baby shower. She could probably, be awkward about it because she doesn't know anybody else there. But it's like, I want you to meet, no, please, I want you to meet my brother and his wife. I want you to, you're a part of, it's like, you're my friend. I want you to come say hi. I want them to meet you. That sort of thing. Maybe there could be a reference to how he's also apparently dating somebody right now. She could make reference to ask him about his day in life. He can mention he's seen somebody, and that'll be May. We don't see her in this movie, but she's mentioned. But yeah, throughout the sequence, the sequence will also end with her doing her EMT thing, like saving somebody at a traffic accident or something, attending an RT. Did I write tonight? No, I didn't. I didn't add what that seems like, but I would say it'd be something like an RTA. Just something that she would have to respond to in her day to day, just as her. But this whole sequence will also highlight she has abilities, but she has a version of precognition. Which she's had all her life. She could maybe the sequence references how she's always seemed to be lucky, or they have a few nicknames for her, because she always has a way of predicting small things. That's the key one. I'm treating this more as something like a very sophisticated spider sense that she's not aware she has. She'll just walk into a room, she walks into that traffic accident, and she's just sort of at a glance, just without really knowing how, she just knows things, or she is able to glean who walks into a room when she's looking in the other direction, or she is able to quickly intervene to something before something happens. Just very Spider Sense-esque, very low tier predictive. I want it in the vein of it's something you can just explain away. It's just treat it like intuition on the gate. It's okay, I know exactly how to reference this on a visual aid. Has anybody ever heard of that series called The Good Witch? If you haven't, trust me, you ain't missing much. The Good Witch is very much a Hallmark production. It started off as a series of movies, went to a TV show. It's one of your C-list Hallmark productions. It's very much in that sort of vein. So if you haven't seen it, you're not missing anything. I can't even explain why I got engrossed in it. It was just one of those fake topics. It was just one of those things that just came up, and then suddenly, oh crap! Why am I interested in this? This has no reason to be as entertaining as it is. I think the reason I like it is because it's different. It's very lighthearted. It's something I could stick in the background and just sort of chill. There's no expectation. Just chill. Just turn your brain off for an hour. It's brilliant. And but anyway, the whole premise around that series is you've got Cassie Nightingale. I lost the name for a second there. Very fitting. Funny. Got Cassie. Cassie and her family, specifically her daughter and her sister. They are what are called a series called Merry Wick Women, and they are sort of hinted to be witches. Good witches. But their gifts have never manifested in an outwardly thing. It's not like they're turning people into frogs or they're cursing that. No, their gifts has always been just enhanced intuition. They just have a way of knowing what people want, what people need, knowing when certain things are about to happen. It's the sort of thing. It's one of the few things I actually enjoy about this series because of how cleverly they ground the magic of this series, because you could just easily say, "Oh, this is magic," but also just easily say, "Oh, they're just a thing. It's just there." I mean, up till the last series of the TV show, which point they really just leaned into the magical angle, which why I didn't like it as much, because they really leaned too much into the actual there is magic in the world. This magic is real. It's not just a concept of people's imagination. No, it's interesting. That's the level of gift I'm expecting our Cassie, Madam Web, to have at this stage in her life. She's just able to, she just knows things, and she has able to sense things, and she's not fully aware how she's doing it. She just knows it's a gift I've always had. And yeah. So that entire sequence will introduce Cassie. We then jump to, yes, we will into, this is the scene I'm picturing. We introduce Ezekiel, but we play it off as he's a mysterious figure. We don't know who he is. His introduction is actually through his NSA contact. I heard he's meant to have his woman in the chair who helps him find all the girls eventually. This is the sequence where basically he recruits her in a public case, very spy-esque, spy thriller-esque, that's it. It's he doesn't reveal his face, he doesn't reveal his identity to her. She can. I'm in my head. I'm picturing her realizing who he is, because she's heard she's read the files on him. He's been hinted to be this secret government operative who's fundamentally a ghost. Nobody knows. He's been very good at how he gets around. He's very effective. He's very dangerous, and one of the things that makes him dangerous is nobody knows who he is, and he never gets caught. He can slip in and out of places that no human should be able to, hinting what's going to be the spider powers that he has. And so that's all what he's been, and he basically recruits her for the purpose of finding the identities of 3 women. But he doesn't outright give them names or photographs. He gives them drawings, and it's later find out why. It'll be explained throughout the movie later that the reason he has drawings is because these are women he keeps having nightmares about. Every night he has dreams of his death, and these are the women he sees. But because they only exist in his visions, as they were, he doesn't know who they are, and so he's recruited the NSA to find out who they are. So he gives them the drawings, which baffles her. But to answer the question of why would she work for him, I think according to the podcast, she basically was motivated by, if you do this, we will become rich. I'm pretty sure that's bold-faced lie. I can't see that being a thing. I can picture it in my scenario. I can picture it more. He coerces her into working with him because she's an NSA agent. He could pull some, I know things about you that you don't want your superiors to know about, that sort of thing, and basically blackmails her into working for him. And when she's reluctantly agrees, he basically does that whole disappearing act secret agents like to do. Yeah, that's what they're introduced to, and that's where we get our 3 drawings, and that's what leads us to our 3 targets: Julia Cornwall, Anya Corona, and Mattie Franklin. Again, I haven't watched these movies, so I don't actually know what their take on these particular characters are. Unfortunately, it's frustrating. I will say this: Anya, if I remember who Anya is meant to be drawing upon for the comics, I want to kind of focus on her as out of the 3 targets, because if she's who I think they're drawing from the comics, she has a much more interesting life in the comic books. If I remember correctly, I need to do my research on this properly. Again, this is very much third tale, so if I ever revisit this, I'll do the research properly so I understand what I'm looking at. But from what I gather, she was meant to be part of a organization / cult that focuses and worships the spider totems. So, and they investigate the ancient tech. They have the ancient texts of the Spider-Man. That's what ties them into the web of life and destiny. They are very much ingrained knowledge-wise and spiritually into that aspect of the Spider-Man mythos, and that's what Anya is a part of, and that's what leads to her gaining spider powers through these mystic arts rather than getting bitten by a spider like everybody else, or whatever, So having her in here might make things interesting because in my head I'm thinking she would be. I'm thinking her cult probably. I could make if this is a thing, and I'll edit this in the later ones. But if she's part of a cult, why not introduce that cult into a movie, but not outright? Just say, okay, this as of right now in this story, Anya is, as we're introduced to, she's basically a runaway. She is living rough. She's she's living rough in the city, as opposed to her two other targets who are leading comfortable lives. I don't know, being students or working in a waitressing job or whatever they were doing in the movie. I suppose if they were just there, I suppose that leaves for a lot of creative credence. Suppose. But Anya is the one who's living rough, going to school, but ultimately hiding out from was essentially her family. But it's not, at this point, it's not hinted like why she's why she's hiding out there, why she's living on this, why she's seemingly a runaway. But yeah, going forward, I'm picturing, that's what she's running in my head. That's what she's running away from, but not in the sense of, oh, I've run away from a cult that because they're the bad guys. It's more like, no, this is just like a religion they live out or a way of life, or it's just like it's just an ordinary family with this is what they believe in, this is what they're attaining her, and she basically ran away from that either because she doesn't want to accept responsibility or she doesn't believe in what they're trying to preach or etc etc. Like I say, I'm not writing this. This is just me theory crafting, but this is all drawn from what I'm pretty sure I'm trying to recollect. When I've done my research, I'll fix it a bit better. Now, so then we'll go back to Cassandra in this version, in my version. To go back to Cassandra, she is attending the baby shower with Ben Parker. She's introduced to Richard Parker. She's introduced to Mary Parker. You know, they have a whole thing of apparently something similar to how the movie apparently portrayed it, but maybe not as cringy. She might make people might sort of talk about how their mothers raised them and all that. And this would be in the part in the story where she reveals to us as the audience and them, those who are not know, because I can't think Ben Parker didn't know about this. Is like how she's basically an orphan. She never knew her mother. Her mother died during childbirth, and she was basically raised as an orphan. I imagine this scene. If I was writing this, it would be a whole like big moment of her between her and Mary sort of looking at her sympathetically, and then it's like probably sharing some like insecurities about whether or not she will make a brilliant mother, and Cassandra could probably be either trying to offer words of comfort or just be awkward about it. But either way, however the scene plays out, it would end with Mary like doing that whole baby bump thing where she'll feel the baby kicking, and apparently whenever does that, it's like, do you want to feel it kicking? And basically has Cassandra feel her bump to feel the baby kick. This is where the crux of the story, basically what I'm calling the catalyst of the story, because I'm picturing when she makes contact with Mary's bump, she is suddenly bombarded with visions as her powers suddenly awaken, like just like that. And she starts seeing glimpses and visions of the whole web of life and destiny, basically. This web and all these visions start bombarding her all at once. To the point where she is basically so overwhelmed, she just literally basically runs out of our house. Somewhere in that period, I'm also envisioning she ends up uttering the name Peter before she leaves, which just leaves everyone like, what the fuck? What happened with her? But yeah, this would be the point in the story where her precognitive powers suddenly went into overdrive. First, originally it was just like minus 5% intuition sort of thing. Now these things are just, okay, what is happening? And it's just something that's happening while she's overwhelmed. While that is happening, ASA analysts have identified the girls through the drawings. It's the age of social media, I'm going to call it. Well, mind you, this was meant to be sent in 2003, right? I don't know how. Whatever. Just say the NSA. You could say they've had facial recognition long before we did. Yeah, so she manages to identify the girls from the drawings. She is able to map their location, and she feeds this information to Ezekiel. And that's basically him tracking the girls as they're going about their day, and Cassandra is reeling from her new visions, not sure what to do with it, and we see like it demonstrated like she's now her spider senses on stronger. She's able to narrowly avoid getting hit by a truck that she was about to get clipped by or something. All paths converge into the subway. I think so that's what leads to the subway scene. Apparently, that I know is meant to exist in the movie, where the three girls are on there, Cassandra's on there, and Ezekiel comes hunting for the girls on the train. And it would play out the whole thing of they're just all living their life, they're just doing their thing, existing, and it's just a whole thing of their worlds suddenly collided, and Cassandra's just sort of on the chair, trying to figure out what to do, and Ezekiel he's not wearing like he could be wearing this costume, but be like under a thick trench coat and a hood and stuff like that. He's just sort of marching through this thing, and he literally walks past Cassandra and zeroes in on his three targets who are just there. They don't see him coming. Cassandra does sort of sense something, and she's there to witness basically the three of them get murdered. Anya, I feel like Anya. Thinking about the Anya Nicole scene. I'm also picturing she would sort of recoil the most from this one because she was just like, "Who the hell are you? What the hell is happening?" One of them dies. "Oh my god, what are you doing?" What the other one's just screaming, and Anya's just in the corner petrified as she's staring at this guy in a spider mask. Probably in her head, I imagine. If she's running from a cult, she might be sitting there believing he's come to take me back. But then he kills her. So, and Cassandra witnesses this, tries to intervene. It leads to Ezekiel basically lashing out, just sort of lashing out at her. I imagine him lashing out at her before he kills the final one, Anya. And that's what leads to basically Cassandra getting like stabbed or impaled or bonked on the head into a point that she's basically about to bleed out or die, and she watches Anya get killed at last before she passes out, and then snap, she's back in that subway car before it's happened. What she just saw was very Final Destination, very very much a vision. It's like, okay, what the hell? And she's still freaking out, but then she sees Ezekiel coming down the train car. It's like, oh fuck. And then she sees him, she looks over, she sees the girls, they're alive, and they're like, she just leaps out of a chair and screams at them, "Get off this train!" And then he intercepts Ezekiel. Ezekiel ends up trying to batter her aside. We see his spider powers on display, but in that scuffle, the girls get away. Cassandra encounters Ezekiel, and in that scuffle, instead of like killing Cassandra outright, he ends up getting a look at her, and he sort of hesitates for a moment. It's like probably me. Actually, I know how to play this. Thinking about it, because I know how I've written this and going forward, I know how to foreshadow this. He just ends up looking at her, like pinned against a window or something. He just looks at her and goes, "You're meant to be dead." And it will play. It's a brilliant double entendre trick. Just "You're meant to be dead," because she'll look at that going, "What I just saw happened. How?" And he was like, "I bet she gets away." But it also plays in something else later, and you'll see what I mean when I get there. But yeah, that's the sequence as I would play it out. Cassandra gets away, the girls get away. He is left on the train, and he's left sort of hunting them in the wind again. Yeah, in the movie, and from what I heard, apparently they went from the subway. Cassandra steals a taxi, takes them in the taxi, takes them to the middle of the woods, and that's how they end up there. I suppose. I suppose we could do something similar, but honestly, that seems a bit iffy. Plus, I never got into the idea of, oh, she took them out into the woods and just left them there. She'll be fine there. I'm just going to go back to my own life now. I'm thinking they just sort of scatter to the winds, as it were. They all go away. So yeah, Cassie's there. She's reeling from what's going on. The girls have gone. They've sort of run back to their homes or whatever. Anya is just sort of left reeling in the streets. She's still in a thing of, "Oh, they've come looking for me. They've come for me. Who was that guy? Who was that woman? What is going on?" That sort of thing. Because she would have seen like I say, I'm playing on the whole thing as she's part of a spider cult. This cult that worships spider totems. She would have seen the spider powers and gone, "What? That's not possible. That's not meant to be real." That sort of thing. The others are just sort of like they're doing their thing. I'm just reading ahead, so he was conclude you might be right, because the masked man would go after them, and I am also envisioning that if they did go home, because the NSA knows who they are, she will have given the addresses to Ezekiel, so Ezekiel will go to their individual homes as they have them to go looking for them, and that's what could lead to at least one of them seeing him like scoping out his house and then basically just books it. It's like, this can't be happening. This can't be happening. She runs off. They run it. Somehow, by plot convenience, I imagine, all three of them ends up converging together. And they all three of them end up finding each other again, realizing they're being hunted. All three of them are being hunted. There are people outside my house. There are people outside my house. I think that man was after me. Well, what? Well, that it's like, okay, because we don't know why they're after us, you know. And for better or worse, that's what leads to the three girls coming together. So they end up sort of hiding out on their own, trying to figure out what the fuck is happening. Ezekiel, while he's hunting the girls, also has his analyst find the footage of Cassandra, literally telling her who is she, asking her, I need to know who she is. Who is this woman? She stopped me, but does something about her. Who is she? And Leander just starts looking into her and basically gets the lowdown of, I imagine gets the lowdown of her because, they're the NSA. As he would be feeling for the instance, Vision still plaguing her as she tries to make sense of it. Yeah, we'd have it. Yeah, it would just be the whole thing of Cassie's still reeling from the whole, okay, I don't know what's going on. What is happening to me? Ben, we'd have a scene of Ben checking on her. We'd have the whole, her powers are manifesting to the point of she can't go to work because she can't concentrate. Her visions, and something about the sequence would encourage her to go looking into her dead mother, because something in her visions she would keep seeing her. So she would look into the mother's stuff, what she has of it, her records or information like that, and then the research, I imagine, it'd be that whole sequence of, similar to how in Amazing Spider-Man 2, I want to say, when Peter Parker was looking into his parents' stuff and he had all their boxes. It's not just them, it's just like, it's the classic, I've spread my Elvis stuff on the floor to researching. And in this research, she finds a photo of her mum and the man who attacked him without the mask. But somehow she knows. She knows it's him. She doesn't know how, but it's him. So, which leads her to believe he knows something about her mother, something she didn't know, because I don't know how much information she'd have about her mother. Very little. But if he knew about her, who is he? Why is he after us? And what does he know about my mother? So it would lead to her chasing her down. And, this is where the research would lead her to what her mother's last exposition was, which was what took her to Peru. Hence the flashback I've still got removed from the timeline. I haven't slotted back in yet. I'll come to that eventually. But that's where she gets that information. Teenagers, the girls would end up hiding out from her, end up at a diner. We'd have the diner scene, although, like I say, I don't exactly know how the diner scene plays out. I imagine I'd play it off in something more akin to they're just hiding out, they're arguing, they don't know what to do, they should go to the police, go into hiding, go home, pretend nothing's happening, all options on the table. Maybe one of them is the absolute idiot and ends up showboating to some of the boys. Anya's the one saying, no, keep a low profile. We don't want to be found again, But it's like, who cares? It's you she's after. And they just sort of bail on her or something. Either way, what happens in that diner is what basically flags up to the NSA analyst who relays it to Ezekiel. And Cassandra's doing similar things. She's preparing to fly to Peru. She's preparing to fly to Peru, find out what happened to her mother, but then she gets hit by another vision. Vision showing the girls being hunted by Ezekiel in the diner. That's basically what leads her to intercepting him at the diner. That's probably where we end up She ends up borrowing a taxi cab. Because I need to get there in a hurry. It's like, hails a taxi. I need you to get to this diner. It's like, but whatever sequence leads to her stealing that cab to get there in a hurry. Ezekiel, we get jump to a scene of Ezekiel stalking towards the diner. We see the girls there. Anya could be the one who sees him approaching, is brightly freaking out, and then this taxi cab comes out of nowhere, just plows into him and into the side, sends him flying through the window. And that's where Cassie basically gets out of a car, just shouts at the three girls to get in the cab. Of course, in this sequence of events, they have no reason to trust her. Mind you, in the movie, I don't think they'd have any reason to trust her. You left us in a bloody forest. Anyway, but it's like, why should we go with you? You're just some crazy bitch just trying to save your life, that sort of thing. And there's like, why would we? And then he just gets so it's like, okay, you know what? Never mind. Just I'd rather go with you than him. So yeah, he gets to they get in the cabs, they race off. Ezekiel chases them off the cab, just very Terminator-esque. Christ's sake, this is literally the Terminator. Why did you not just go with that? Somewhere in this scenario, I've got it written here. He hits one of the girls with an electric dog. It almost stops her heart. I don't know if Howard did. I have no reason to have introduced an electric dart in this, or maybe he does. It's part of his gadgets. You just don't see him. Maybe he's got like his own version of web shooters, which instead of firing webs, it's literally just shoots like electric darts, poison darts, just steel rods or something. Yeah, the electric. Yeah, they're racing off in the cab. Cassie shakes him off the cab. He fires an electric dart through the windscreen at them. Like I said, I think I had a whole conversation of them introducing it. Reason I'm thinking about the electric dart is to include the. It's going to be. I know from what I hear, the whole CPR scene in the actual movie was a bit iffy, and it was out left field. This is my answer to why Cassie would teach them CPR. One of them is hit with his darts. They make their escape. They drive into like a safer area like the woods or something. They get out the car. I'm thinking either Julia or Mattie gets hit by this dart and her heart essentially stops, and Cassie uses CPR to wake her back up again. Reasons from actual medical reasons for that. And while she's doing that, she's basically, showing the others how it's done, just in case you need to save save each other's lives again. Yeah. With that, that will leave all the women in one scene, and they have this. But this will be the first instance where Cassie is able to talk to these teenagers, and these teenagers are able to sit there and go, "What the fuck is happening?" And of course, the teenagers will give their theory. They think they're after the spider guy is after Anya because she's convinced that the cult are after her, and Cassie just reveals, no, he's after all of you. I don't know why, and I don't know how I know this, but trust me, he's after all of you. He's already killed you a few times already. I've seen it, or whatever. They'll think she's crazy. Some of them might petition to just leave because this bitch is Looney Tunes. But in the end, that leads to that whole conversation, that whole thing, and it leads to the question of what to do now. They can't go home. He's already attacked some of them at their home. They can't just go off on their own. He'll find them eventually. So Cassie realizes the only way she can protect him from Ezekiel, this stranger, is to take them with her to Peru while she's looking for answers, because whoever this man is has answers to her mother, and she could basically explain this to them while they're in the taxi ride to grab a plane to Peru or whatever. Just like, they could be sitting there like, so, we're just going to follow this random lady just because she saved her life twice. It's like, so that's what leads all of them to Peru. Of course, Ezekiel would track with the help of his analyst, finally get an identification of Cassie, and the analysts were given the identification of Cassie, and through that they realize where they're going. And she would say, I think I can find out where she's going, and he could interrupt her. It's like, no, I know where she's going. And that's what then we cut to Peru, where this actually, according I've put in my notes, this is where Cassie teaches them how to perform CPR, like on the plane or something, just in case they need it. Anya also opens up about her family. She sort of gives a little backstory as to what kind of group she is, how she ran away because they had beliefs or a faith or were part of something that she doesn't believe exists. Like they worship a particular. I don't know if I want to explain. They worship. She could probably just say they worship some kind of god. You wouldn't believe me if I told you and all that. Yeah, but she also there could also be a hint that Anya sees something in the way this man moves that makes her more terrified than the others in a different sense. That's what I've put my notes here. They go to Peru. Cassie follows some of his notes to find the site where she was looking for the rare species of spider. Oh, as the notes portray, I don't know how they tracked this. I mean, already getting wishy-washy as how this woman was able to take these three teenagers who are on the run onto a plane and fly them to Peru. But I'm picturing a fly commercial because it feels a bit too convenient. So, we just have a plane that one of them is Cassie can fly or something. So they get there, they go investigating. It was just like snap cut to them traipsing through the forest. Teenagers being the teenagers. It's like, why the hell are we traipsing through a jungle? What the hell are we doing here? What the hell is happening with our lives? I could be streaming on TikTok right now. That sort of thing. Cassie follows her mother's notes. They get to what was the campsite. They find what looks like the remains of her mother's campsite. And when they're there, they're also greeted by the tribe of indigenous people waiting for them, and they're literally sitting there They basically surround her, and they literally welcome Cassie back, recognizing and they'll take her to a village, and this is where we get the explanation of what happened to her mother here. Of course, in this area, so here so the tribe, having bring Cassie and the girls here, to give them safety, they explain her mother came to this place looking for the sacred spiders of their jungle. That's in the hopes of use it because these spiders are rumored to have medicinal properties, special healing properties that she wishes to save. I've written my notes, so she might save her unborn daughter from a genetic birth defect that would kill her when she was born. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the actual reasoning behind all that. Maybe it's to save her unborn child. Maybe she's just a professor who's been studying these spiders for so long. Maybe it's one or above. I mean, I can't think of what other reason why a heavily pregnant woman would traipse up to the middle of the jungle. Point is, this is like, from what I've heard, this I'm going similar to how the background of the actual origin story from the movie actually takes place. And Ezekiel Sims would also be there, but since in my version of events, he basically, the tribe explains that Ezekiel betrayed her mother and stole the spider, and in the process of betraying her, tried to kill her. The mother died, but the tribe was able to save the child, and then they returned her to civilization. This part of the story where Anya, who has been looking at this in absolute disbelief, realizes that the people who returned Cassie from Peru to New York were members of this group, and that group went on to form the cult / group that she was born into. Basically, she realizes she realizes these were the ancestral people and the worshippers of the spider gods that she had been born into believing, and realizing that everything she'd been told might actually be true. So she's having a whole crisis of faith thing in here. At this point, this is where Cassie asks about the visions she's been having and why she is able to see all of this stuff, and they explain she is connected to what they call the Great Web, and that her powers will grow when she opens her eyes to the web of life and destiny. According to my notes, this is a big exposition thing, and that leads to them basically leaving the village with the answers she's sought. So they basically they'll return to the campsite where her mother was, and it'd be like Cassie finally saying farewell to her mother, who she finally learns, now she knows why she died and where she was and what happened to her. And this is when Ezekiel arrives at the camp, literally ambushes them and literally subdues a lot of them. But this time he doesn't quite kill all three of them because he wants to have a word with Cassie and basically says, we talk or they die, as it were. Literally held them hostage. Well, this is where the whole web shooter things, like you could pin one of them to a wall, just knock one of them down to the ground, so shoot them in the leg or something, to knock one of them out, that sort of thing. Point is, so he and Cassie finally get that question, and she confronts Ezekiel about her mother, and he finally gives his backstory as to what happened from his point of view, which was he did explain his mother when he saw the spiders, all he could see was dollar signs, because it's a rare species, and on the black market he could make a fortune. Her mother wouldn't get out of the way, so he killed her, well, shot her or whatever. But when he took one of the spiders, he was bitten, and it cursed him. He gained the powers of the spider, but was also forced to see visions of his death. He explains in his visions he saw these in his visions / his nightmares. It's like he was cursed to forever dream only of his death, and he's been suffering with those nightmares for all those years later. But his abilities have enabled him to become a very deadly operative, which allowed him to basically work for a government, play assassin, turn mercenary, whatever, which is how we got to where he is now. He explains in his nightmares he saw the 3 girls that he's been chasing in the future. These 3 are connected to his death in some way, which we will discover as they are spider totem because they are destined to become spider totems. But without knowing how or why, just knowing that they're somehow connected to his death, he sort of set out to just kill them once he'd found them. However, now that he's here, he makes Cassie a deal because he realizes that Cassie can also see visions, but she sees the future in a way different. While his is limited to nightmares until his death, hers is more broad. So he basically forces her to understand his visions, and they basically join hands, join forces, join minds, whatever, to open her eyes to the great web. This awakens her power. This awakens her powers, enables her to show him the web of life and destiny, and together they see the great web. Hence, thematically, the web at the beginning of the movie, because they see the web and they see the girls, the girls, the spider totems on the strands. But through having finally seen the big picture, Ezekiel realizes his fate is not the core. It's like his fate is not directly tied to these girls. It's not the way he thought they were. They are all connected, but at the center of a web, what is basically connecting them all, that the crux of it is a very particular spider totem, a very special spider totem. Yeah, and you basically get the revelation of our third act twist, and it horrifies Cassie because she recognizes who this totem is, and Ezekiel finally gets the name Peter Parker. Now, and in this part of the story, that's where we sort of get a flash cut to New York, and we see Mary Parker and Richard Parker, and Mary is just suddenly going into labor. That whole thing. Ben gets a phone call that is okay. So yeah, basically, Mary goes into labor. Ben gets that note. Everybody, that whole thing's happening. But meanwhile, in Peru, Ezekiel's got the name. He realizes that Peter Parker is at the center of this web, and he comes to understand he's been chasing the wrong totems, and obviously Cassie, begs him not to, and he just throws Cassie into a nearby river and basically leaves her to drown and just leaves through the jungle. Cassie's in the water. She continues to be assaulted by visions, seeing a glimpse into her future. I don't have the notes of what her future is, but I think I'm gonna hint that it's because she basically, we get a flash of her in the chair with the glasses and all of that. Basically, her eyes are opening to the web of life and destiny while she's dying, but she is then rescued by one of the girls. I'm gonna say Anya is the one who pulls her out. Oh, no, I think I had this in my head while I was doing this. Anya is like the arthritis own thing. We've got one of them is sort of hinted to be a pro swimmer in a school, so I think she's the one who would be the one to pull her out of the water. And then they basically use the CPR they learnt from Cassie to revive her. But not apparently they did the whole CPR in a very sexy, inappropriate, sort of iffy way. So I'm just thinking no, they just used the CPR that she taught him. She wakes up. She reveals why they were all brought together. They're connected by the Great Web. They're brought together to protect an innocent life before he's even born. Which basically revealing we were all brought together to stop Ezekiel from killing this baby Peter Parker. Anya, so they all have to race off to get there. Anya bids farewell to what she realizes is her tribe, accepting a gift they offer, which is like, I'm picturing like a scroll, basically assuring her about what her purpose in all of this is, realizing that her purpose was always been to protect the web of life and destiny, to protect this spider totem, and realizing that the prophesied totem that she'd been taught was going to become one day, that they would basically serve and protect and assist in their journey, is about to come true. And especially realizing that Cassie is also somebody else that her people have been prophesizing about, called the Seer. So realizing this, she basically accepts her role back steps back into the fold of his tribe and joins Cassie in a quest to save this. I don't want to give the title. I think Peter Parker was meant to be a totem called the Other in this whole thing, so maybe I can tie into that. But that's what they set off to get back to New York as fast as possible. Of course, in New York, Mary goes into labor. The Parker goes to the hospital. Ezekiel gets there first. Not New York, not the hospital. Although we'll get to that. He calls up his analyst one last time and basically orders her to find a target. Look up the name Peter Parker. She looks up and realizes there is no record of a Peter Parker in New York, or the closest we've got is Mary and Richard Parker, and by extension Ben Parker. But it's in that research she also realizes she realizes Mary has just been admitted to hospital for going into labor. She's about to give birth. Ezekiel understands what this means, and the analyst is horrified when he basically requests the address of a hospital, and she becomes reluctant afterwards. Like, hunting girl's one thing, but this is a child that's about to be gone. What you can't be thinking that he basically just orders for the hospital, demands the name of the hospital, and basically hangs up. Cassie and the girls return. They all race to the hospital. I'm thinking they get back for some reason. They get back in the same taxi they stole or something, or whatever. They race into the hospital. Cassie calls Ben. Ben finally gets through to her and explains that he's at the hospital with his brother and sister-in-law. Mary's going to labor. She realizes that's where they need to go, and realizes Ezekiel's coming for him. Ezekiel infiltrates the hospital. He attacks the security I'm picturing he's going full Terminator mode. He's no longer wearing a mask. He's just storming down the hospital things. The security tries to stop him. He just sort of backs. It's just sort of cuts through them one after the other. Yeah, technically, as he closes in on the Parkers, the Parkers are there doing the whole giving birth thing. But while Ezekiel's turned for that, NSA agents arrive to arrest him, and you basically discover the analyst sold him out to the NSA because she will not be party to what he's about to do. It's like she draws a line. It's like hunting young women is one thing, but hunting teenagers is already a sin on her career. But she'll take it for consequences. She'd rather take the consequences than allow an infant to be harmed. So obviously he just goes on a warpath. You don't see the fight. It's happening. There's gunfire and all of that. But that slows him down enough for Cassie and the girls to arrive at the hospital, to race to the pediatric wing to try and get there, and they arrive in time to see Ezekiel finish off the last of the NSA agents sent to arrest him. Cassie basically confronts him. With her powers awakened. I don't know what kind of powers she's meant to have historically, but I'm going to assume that she's got her spider sense is so attuned to the point she's able to dodge Ezekiel's attacks now. And Anya would be the more physically fit to fight him because she'd been trained by her order to basically perform martial arts, which she hasn't been showcasing enough. I'm picturing she showcased a bit of this spider fighting style in the movie periodically when Ezekiel showed up in minor aspects, because she's more been reactive fear. Now she's no longer afraid. Now she's fighting alongside the Seer. She's able to just go hand to hand with Ezekiel, but he's obviously stronger and more well trained and is able to overpower her. But it slows him down further, so Cassie can order the others to go find the baby and protect him. So Peter is born. Yeah, Peter is born. They're all there. It's sort of they end up leading to a whole thing where they find out, it's like what the hell is happening? Ben's like, what the hell is going on? Cassie convinces him to literally take the Parkers, take the baby, get out of here, run as fast as you can. Has the girls protect him. Anya specifically, who she basically charges with guarding it, protect it, who basically takes it upon herself to guard the child with her life because she understands the importance of this child now. Yeah, Cassandra confronts Ezekiel again. They have a whole back and forth around how he killed her mother, how he doesn't have to do this, but he says he does. If it's like, in order for all this, he is the center of it all. If he dies, all the nightmares go away, that sort of thing. She obviously confronts him. They have a fight. I'm picturing she gets forced down an elevator shaft. They get forced down an elevator shaft. He has the spider power to stick to walls. She does not, so she literally lands, and basically that's what paralyzes her. But before, that's the end of that particular fight. Before that, I'm picturing a whole sequence that leads to her getting blinded. Like he uses one of her darts, so he hits her. I'm thinking during the fight, there's exposed electrical cables. He's able to use it, and basically swacks her across the face with it, and she, gets hit by this electrical current, and she's blind. She's made blind by this. But it's like in the middle of a fight. It's not just like, it just, an arbitrary thing I just appears on it. It's during the fight. It's like during the struggle, he hits her with something that blinds her, that dazes her, and then he is able to force her down an elevator shaft where she lands and basically becomes paralyzed. Or she's meant to have been killed, believing she's been killed. Teenagers, meanwhile, they are racing with the Parkers to get him out of a hospital. Ezekiel is chasing after him, and Anya does her best to slow down. Actually, all three of them do their best to slow him down. They fight in their own ways. Like Anya's got her training. I'm going to say Julia and Matty, I don't know what they would bring to the table, but it's like something. It's like, just enough to showcase like how they would become heroes in this. And then this is where Cassie, lying sort of broken at the bottom of the elevator shaft, is able to sense see/sense what's happening and how delicate the thread is right now. And in that instant, she realizes, whilst blind, she is able to, I'm going to say, through the web, she is able to hear her mother in her last moments of breath. Her visions show her flashing back to the moment her mother died, and she's speaking to her unborn child or whatever. And she's like, she tells her, it's like, it'll be okay. You are strong. You are stronger than you think. Or just like, it'd be. Actually, I'm thinking thematically now. I'm picturing like she's just given birth to Cassie. Cassie is the baby is sort of in her arms, and she's sort of talking to her and encouraging her to open her eyes for the first time. And in that same instant, because Cassie is hearing it in here, she opens her eyes to the web of life and destiny, and she accesses the full totality of her powers. And this allows her to do things, including manifest/speak to Ezekiel before he's able to get past Ben and get to the baby. Is able to literally. I'm not thinking she appears physically in front of him. I'm picturing more like he sort of freezes and he starts talking to her. Like they don't see her, but he does. It's like she's sort of speaking to him telepathically, as it were. So, but point is, she manifests. She tries to talk him down. He's sort of losing it, but that gives the girls the time to basically intercept him and push him out of a window where he falls outside and basically lands. And as he's looking up, he sees the three of them standing at the window, looking down at him, and he realizes this was the moment he'd been This is the moment he'd been waiting for. This was the moment where he saw these three looking down. This was the moment of his nightmares. This is the moment he dies. Of course, according to my notes, however, I'm also got this image of. Apparently, I've put it down in my notes that Cassie will approach him similar to how he does there. It's like manifests, not physically again, but from our perspective, it's like she's standing there, and she reveals to him he's not destined. His destiny was never to die here. He only saw a piece of his future and fixated it. He was only able to see a piece of his future and fixated it. The spider was never meant for him, but now he has a part to play in the great web. Their destinies and the destinies of the Totans above them, including Peter Parker, have been set in motion. So she basically consoles him. Alden's like, "You're not. This isn't where you die, but you now have a part to play." And which leads to, by the time the police arrive, Ezekiel is gone. The baby's safe. Everyone's safe. Cassandra is still lying at the bottom of the ravine, but this is, it's like she is fully aware now, as it were. Jump to some time later. We see Cassie now in a wheelchair. She's got the sunglasses. She is officially the Madam Web as we recognize it. The girls have returned to their lives, so we get one last visit from them before we part ways to face their destiny. I picture there's a moment, there'll be a touching moment between Anya and Cassie in particular, where Cassie thanks Anya to pass her thanks to her family for bringing her home. And Anya thanks her for opening her eyes, as it were, before she returns to her group to continue her destiny into their cult, as it were. Yeah, I've also got a note here that showcases we also see Richard and Mary, taking care of their baby. We're also getting a visit from the analyst of the NSA offering to recruit them so they can protect their family from his people, like Ezekiel. Which, I think I put that in to tie into the fact of Richard and Mary were meant to be like tied into like the government, and that's sort of part of the reason why they ended up disappearing / getting killed off later. So it's like, their fates are set in stone. But it's like that's the beginning of things. We could also finally get the whole thing of Ben is about to introduce May to his brother. But yeah, the movie basically ends with everybody set on their path to where they are. The teenagers are safe. Cassandra is doing her whole Madam Web thing where I'm picturing the movie sort of ends with her like sitting in a wheelchair looking out into the great web, and it sort of fades out, and she sort of it's like she looks sort of dead in the camera or something as she finishes narrating, and it cuts to credits. One final thing, apparently I've even added a post-credit scene where we see Ezekiel somewhere. I'm picturing nursing his wounds in a hidden bunker somewhere. I'd say it's like a safe house, and he's sort of he's finally laying down to sleep, and he finally gets I know how we can pitch it. He's in his bunker. He's nursing his wounds. He's coming to understand his great place in the web of life and destiny and his purpose. And you see drawings similar to the drawings he gave the analyst of the girls he'd been seeing in his dreams. And amongst them, we see drawings of Peter when he's older. We see pictures of Spider-Man. We see spiders. We see other markings. And in the center of it all, we see Morlun, a vampiric entity hunting spider totems. That's our tease for what Sony should have done for this, which would have been interesting, which is teasing Morlun, and they could have their own whole Spider-Verse thing. But yeah, that's a very rough run through of my notes of how I would write the Madam Web movie. Again, based solely on what I've heard people say about the movie and how the movie went about. This is how I do. If I ever get this chance, I hope not. If I ever get a chance to watch this movie, preferably maybe in a year when it comes on Netflix or TV or something, I'm able to watch it sort of for free. I say for free on Netflix. I'm paying for Netflix anyway. If it comes on Netflix, I'll be able to watch it. Just to see what the whole fuss is about. Maybe I'll update this once I've watched it, or maybe I'll watch it and I'll look back at this audio and say, nope, I had it right the first time. But yeah, that's how I would have personally written Madam Web. I'm not here to say this is how Sony should have done it. I'm just saying this is how I should have done it. I don't know whether anybody else would agree with me. If you do agree with me, let me know in the comments down below. It'd be interesting to see your takes on what you. It'd be interesting to hear your takes on how you think Man and Web should have gone. Was it good? Did you enjoy the movie? Did you hate the movie? What parts of the movie worked? What parts of the movie didn't? It'd be interesting to see what the general consensus of this movie is and what. That's the fun thing about movies like this. Because like in my hating, there's always going to be the element of people will like what they like, but there'll always be people who have ideas of how they would have improved it or what they would have done differently. It's part of the conversation. I'd like to start a conversation of how would you have approached this project if you were able in a position, if you approached Sony and said, "I want you to come up with an idea for this thing," how would you do it? And I'd like to hear your opinions. But yeah, if you've reached the end of this video, Jesus Christ, I have no idea how long this video is going to be. If you like this content, please leave a like. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. I don't know if I want to do more content like this, which is just going to be me rambling about ideas of how it's not theory crafting. Theory crafting is literally taking a thing that's going to happen and predicting what's going to happen. No, this is me taking something that's already happened and telling you how I would have liked it to go. Because I've had no end of things where I wish I'd done things. Like I had a thing around the Supergirl TV show. I've had plenty around that, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know if I'll do more of these. I'd like to say if I can. If I get a chance, I will, because I actually do. It's like I have so many of these. It's a type of video I've always wanted to make, so this is really my first experiment, and I picked something I've never actually watched. Oh boy, okay. But yeah, thanks for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you all later. Thank you for listening, audience.
What do you want from me? Why do you care for me?